Awesome. Another exciting conversation tonight for all of you academic folks who want to learn a little bit more about baseball at the highest academic levels in our country. And I don't know that we could find anything that's higher than Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Jack, Hawke, thank you for being with us tonight.
Appreciate you having me. Thank
Yeah.
you.
My wife and I, just prior to having children, lived in Wellesley, Massachusetts. And I
hmm
remember the first time that I walked around your campus and felt really, really small and insignificant. You, though, have come from Harvard to go to MIT. And before that, you were at Vassar. And before that, you were at Bard. You've been at some awesome places. Tell us a little bit about your background, if you will.
Yeah, so I played at Bard College in New York, where this is where I first started coaching. I then coached at Vassar, and then, like you said, Harvard and MIT. Really, I just fell in love with my college coach Ed Kohovic, who's now the head coach
Yeah.
at Holy Cross. I say this to him like pretty frequently, but he's a big reason I wanted to coach, and he kind of blushes when I say that. But what I mean by that is when I got to Bard. It was the first time that I had really been exposed to baseball in like a more academic, more intelligent, way. And he's that type of guy. If you've ever met him,
Yeah.
he's very much a high academic guy, and he's a great person altogether. But um, where I was challenged to think outside the box and obviously balance my schedule as a student athlete and really strive for excellence in everything that I did. And there was really no option otherwise. And so at playing at Bard, that was the first time I engaged with my relationship with baseball was also academic, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Hmm.
And so it wasn't this like, you get to be a jock over here and an academic, someone who loves learning and cares about intelligence over here. It was all blended together. So that's what opened my eyes to the fact that, that and a lot of other things opened my eyes to the fact that I think I could be a really good coach one day and a teacher,
Yeah.
but also that made me passionate about the high academic student athlete experience, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Because I know that
Ma-
that blend was something that was so rewarding for me. And
Yeah.
there's absolutely nothing wrong with, any school that's maybe considered not academic, but that's where my passions lie, I guess.
Jack, if you go back to when you were a high school student trying to decide where you were going to play, and you ultimately settled, it sounds like, on Bard, but you were in the place where so many of these kids are today. What were you looking for at that point in time? Because it sounds like you figured this, you landed at an academic place, but you learned a lot about yourself once you were already there.
Man, yeah. I really, if I'm being honest, I really didn't know what I wanted. I was visiting some schools and I was talking to coaches, and a lot of the messages sounded kind of the same, and a lot of the campuses, like the buildings and it all kind of blended together. And in terms of studying, I myself I'm a STEM-minded student, so I knew I wanted to maybe study math or economics or science of some kind. I knew that part, and I knew I had good enough grades to go to some of the schools I was looking at. But in terms of an experience, I was really just, looking back, I guess I was just looking for, again, a rewarding experience at a place that I fit at and the place that was going to challenge me and that I was going to make lasting relationships at. But beyond that general notion, I didn't know. So
Yeah.
um, it's hard. It's really hard as like to know, and it's exciting when I meet potential student athletes that are like very clear and organized in terms of what they want, whether they
Yeah.
were coached to be that way or not.
Yeah.
I personally wasn't. I just was trying to go to the best school I could and play baseball in college because I was really passionate about it. I not only did I want to keep playing, but I wanted to be challenged at a new level
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
baseball side of things, right?
Yeah.
Because just wanting to play is not enough, and we'll probably get into that here. Because you can play club wherever you want,
Sure.
or play in sandlot leagues or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that either. But if you want to play at the varsity level, there's an extra added level of commitment there. You need to want more out of it, and I think that's what I wanted. It's kind of a long answer, but That's the honest
Great.
truth. Is that I really I had trouble like consolidating all my wants in high school. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that you've been doing this a little while at on the other side, right? You said that the messages that you heard from all of these academic coaches sounded pretty similar. And you probably didn't have the ears to hear the differences if they gave them to you anyway. But at a place like you're at right now, I'd love to hear just a little bit about like what is the pitch? Like, I mean, at some level, MIT sells itself, right? Everybody in the world who's academic knows of your school, but not every baseball player dreams of coming there because of what they imagine that they're going to get themselves into. So I'd just love to hear a little bit about like what is it that you use to sell MIT baseball?
To your point, it's the logo sells itself to a degree, but again, with more money, more problems, I guess, right? With the higher level student athlete you try to recruit and that you have recruit, the more success you
Mm,
have,
yeah,
the higher tier kid and the higher profile schools you're competing with now. So my pitch is that coming to MIT and playing baseball, the every door you can imagine is open, and there's precedent for it. It's not a theory. Like we've had guys drafted, we've had guys
mhm,
go work for MLB organizations, we've had guys work for NASA, we've had guys do all kinds of crazy. We've had guys invent things, make startups, make a lot of money, whatever. So anything that you really want to do, it might not literally be available to every single player, but in terms of an entire team, there's really no door that's closed.
yeah,
And the to bundle it up into a phrase like what do MIT kids do after they graduate? The true answer is whatever the heck they want. And there's very few, if any, other schools in the country that can
yeah,
honestly say that.
yeah. That's probably a T-shirt that's around your campus at some point, isn't it? If
Yeah,
not, it
that
should be.
that or like embrace the hard or something like that.
Yeah. You used the phrase right before we started recording, excellence is not a switch, right? I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that too. I use this a lot when I'm talking to young men, right? Who talk about excellence as a baseball player, and yet maybe their transcript doesn't show excellence, or maybe they're not excellent as they treat their parents or their siblings or their teammates or their umpires. And I generally think about that how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I'm curious your thoughts on that idea that excellence is not a switch. Because at MIT, you've got to be excellent at more than one thing.
Yeah, well, in the context of MIT, you really don't have an option. If you slack in class, you're just gonna sink.
Yeah,
If you slack in the weight room, you're just gonna get over recruited and outplayed by everybody else,
yeah,
and outplayed by our opponents because we play in one of the top, if not the top, conference in the Northeast and in the country.
yeah,
Um, so there's not a lot of like the floor in terms of like standards is super high at our place because
yeah.
everybody's one of the highest, if not the highest achiever in the country and in the world.
Yes.
Everybody wants to come here. Everyone's going to work their butts off to be here. So, but at the end of the tunnel, like I said before, it's that piece of paper that's your ticket to do a lot of stuff.
Anything. Yeah,
So yeah, it's in a way kind of easy to talk about here because there's really no other option. You either get it
yeah,
done, or you don't, and you sink.
yeah, yeah.
Everywhere's got their degree of safety nets, I guess, but it's certainly something our guys believe in because they have to, but they embrace it and they develop really, really good habits. And at the end of the day, the guys who do the right things more often than not are the guys who are, more successful on the field, more successful in their jobs, more successful in their social lives. And the guys who don't really do what they're supposed to do all the time are not.
Mm,
And it's
yeah.
it's not easy, but it is that simple.
Let's talk a little bit about um, how you find guys and what it is that you're looking for. I mean, for so many coaches that I deal with around the country, the first thing they want to see is video. And typically, when I call someone like you, yeah, the video is important because you want to win games, but like, we got to see the transcript. If the transcript's not good enough, the video simply doesn't matter. What's your process like?
Yeah, first of all, it's a two-way street, I think, or a two-sided coin, if you will. Both have to be at a high level. So the transcript's got to be really good, and the video's got to be really good too.
Yeah,
Um, we're not going to recruit a guy who's not that good at baseball, but has an 800 math SAT.
yeah,
Um, we're also not going to recruit the other direction. But to your point, there's no purpose in recruiting a guy who has a C in calculus, to be honest with
hmm
you. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
So
yeah,
the transcript is really, really important. How we find guys, we're fortunate to have a lot of interest. So email's
hmm
huge. Guys just reaching out to us cold and making relationships that way. High academic showcases are really important. Show ball is a big one that we do.
hmm
Institutional camps like our own, are obviously a
hmm
great and
yeah,
an invaluable tool. But also,
yes,
we do Harvard camps and other Ivy League school camps that they host on their campuses. Typically, you get a lot of obviously high academic potential student athletes there.
yeah,
Things like the Arizona Fall Classic, the
hmm,
academic game that we do a quick turnaround there in the fall usually. The senior one, but we've done the junior one in the past too.
yeah, yeah,
Um, those are the main events. But then, like, if there's things that we can, if there any kind of gameplay is important too. So, like the Boston Open, which is now I think the
yeah,
Boston Classic, is a
yeah,
big one because we can drive there. It's in our backyard,
yeah.
and Diamond Nation too is
Mm.
huge. One of the million things that they host there. So as much as we
Dude,
can,
yeah, yeah. I think I texted you about this a couple of months ago, but one of the issues that I found in helping young players over the years is, you go play for the I'm going to pickle one guy who's probably on this phone call, but you go play for the Houston Banditos. And if you look left and right in your dugout, if there's 18 players in there, the 17 of them that are in the dugout with you, they can't go to MIT and they can't go to Harvard and they can't go to Emory. And so when I call Jack and say, or Coach Shade and say, hey, will you come watch us play? And there's one guy that you can see that you can get into school when you come watch that team play. So we decided, to put this team of 18 players together that have the transcripts and the test scores to come to play at places like MIT. They may not all get 800 on their math SATs, and maybe there's a C in calculus somewhere out there. I don't know. I hope there's not. But point is, like, we're coming to that Boston event trying to make it as easy for you as we can, right? To play 4 competitive games in front of you at least, and to do the site tours that guys from Colorado and Houston and Florida need to see. So hope that we're going to make that easy for you. So
that's huge. It's a really good idea.
yeah, well, it's there needs to be more of this. This was our toe in the water this summer to see if we could make this happen. So
Definitely.
tell me a little bit about specific to the transcript. I would imagine C's are basically a disqualifier at any level, and frankly, a couple of B's probably starts to disqualify you at MIT as well, right? Fair to say?
Fair to say, yeah. Most, if not all, A's in your math and science courses. Um, there's really A's and A minuses everywhere is obviously ideal.
Yes.
The most important thing is the rigor,
Yeah.
particularly in the STEM fields. So, are you on track to take the absolute highest level math and science classes, particularly physics classes, offered at your school?
Yep.
Regardless of your kind of circumstance, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
And sometimes I get it. You're put on a math track in fourth grade sometimes, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you can't take multivariable calc, but you can only take AP Calc BC. We've seen that before.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a deal breaker right there.
Okay.
Um, but the rigor is important. So we want to see that stuff. A lot of times, if on the other side, we'll have potential student athletes who have maxed out already junior year, and
hmm
then if they take it easy senior year, that's an issue. So we like to see them maybe taking classes outside their high school curriculum if they're
Yeah.
in the situation where they can. It's not a requirement, but that's a separator.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what we look for. Is that's the most important thing is transcript rigor.
Test scores. How do you guys look at test scores? Where are people disqualified typically in terms of numbers, whether it's SAT or ACT?
Yeah, it's hard to put like a disqualifying number because there's always like the one
There's
exception that
always
you
exceptions.
point
Sure.
at.
Yeah.
But what we typically look for is a 1500 plus SAT with a
Hmm.
770 plus math on that.
Okay.
And then a 34 plus ACT, 35 plus ACT with a 35 plus math and science score on that. And
Okay.
all that is the if you Google MIT admission statistics,
Yeah.
they lay out all that data of what got in, and
Yeah.
that's real data from students who got in.
Sure.
That's basically the median ranges. And I think a lot of
Yes.
schools do this too, where they just
Yeah.
publish the median ranges of those test scores, and basically that's
Yeah.
what we're looking for.
So you do you have the ability, it sounds like it's limited, to pull a kid in that otherwise would be maybe a marginal candidate to get into MIT on his own?
Potentially. And I say potentially because there's not a formula and we don't have
Sure.
slots, and we can talk more about that if you want.
I do. Yeah.
But we can make we're not going to flip a kid from being inadmissible to being
Sure.
admissible.
Yep.
We don't have
Okay.
that kind of juice.
That's helpful.
But we can take a kid who's already admissible in the mix and bump them to being maybe the top part of the list,
Yeah.
if that makes
Yeah.
sense, to make him a
Makes total
much more
sense.
desirable candidate.
Yeah, makes total sense. Tell me, you brought up the word slots. It's a word we use often. Tell me a little bit about how that works with MIT and admissions.
Yeah, so we present a list to admissions of who's applying, and then ultimately who has that turns into who has applied when the time comes. And we rank them overall and within their position. And
Mhm.
we're in constant communication with admissions about not only individual kids and from a pre-screen or feedback
Yes.
process, but also we're in touch with them about what we need positionally, what we're looking
Yes.
for socially, and then what they're looking for too. Sometimes they'll give us some insight on that as well.
Sure.
Um, Usually they're not super like specific, but they can
Yeah.
kind of hint at certain things.
Yeah.
And it's a two-way street all the time. I express it as we're kind of on the same team, so you're always trying to work with them. And we in the support process, we are able to do a bunch of write-ups and kind of explain in depth about who the kid is, what doesn't show up on the transcript that they need to know.
Hmm.
And it adds a lot of context to their application. So that's
Yeah.
the support process. It's hard to quantify like
Yeah.
how much support it is because I'm not really
Yeah.
sure even how I would do that.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that the MIT admission rate overall is like 4%.
Yes.
Um, and for us, we're usually around you know 10 times that at least in terms
Sure.
of the guys, speaking about statistically how many guys we support versus how many are admitted.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes total sense. Do you have a target number that you're trying to get to each admittable student baseball players each year? Meaning, when you were at Harvard, it sounds like they had seven slots to support each class. Do you have a number that you're trying to get to each year at MIT?
Yeah, much more defined down the street at
Okay.
Harvard, but
Yeah.
with us
Yeah.
there's no limit. There's we need to support, like I said, not unfortunately not everyone we support will get in, but
Right.
a
Right.
large portion to most of them will. So we
Yeah.
need to protect our roster size, but we also need to be concise and targeted with who we're supporting. We can't
Yeah.
support 50
Yeah.
and just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
But we also can't support exactly 8 every year
Right.
if we
Right.
need 8.
If you're only going to get
So
40% of them in. Yeah.
yeah, 40 and on the low end,
Yeah.
up to 80 some years, but it
Sure.
varies.
Yeah.
Um, but somewhere between 15.
Yeah.
Usually, again, it's a range a little bit. We need a few more guys, a big class. We need to support a few more. If we need to be more targeted, we a little bit less, but
Yeah.
around there.
When does your pre-read process start? And I would assume you're driving everybody to, I don't remember, I didn't look this up before I got on, but you have an early decision one or something like that you're trying to get everybody to. What is that, November 1st, I would assume?
Yeah,
Is
early
that about
action.
right?
No, yeah, just one round of
Okay.
early action, November
Okay.
1st.
Okay.
One round of regular action, January
Yeah.
3rd this year.
Okay.
So no binding admission. We don't have
Yes.
decision in there.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah. So it's a rolling thing with
Hmm.
admission in terms of the pre-read process.
Yeah.
So, people compare us to like the NESCAC a lot. We're
Yeah.
not a NESCAC, we're not similar, but um, a lot of kids are also looking at NESCAC schools, and they have a
Sure.
very formal process. And I think every school is different, but they have like a date they have to set for things. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
we don't have like a date. Hey, you need to get your stuff in by this date. I'm in constant. I'm literally twice, 3 times a week talking to our admission liaison over the summer
Yeah.
about, hey, what do you think of this kid? I basically give them their transcript, test scores, course catalog,
Yeah.
and maybe a school profile or something like that, or maybe other supplemental materials. And he gives his feedback based on what he might see on there. He'll
Yeah.
either
Yeah.
say, hey, he looks really, really good,
Yeah.
or he will, whatever the feedback is. And
Yeah.
then some things I can share with the student athletes, some things I can't,
Sure.
but that's how that works.
Okay. And I know that you're already in contact with some of the guys that are coming on this team. So, I don't think you've done any academic reads, but it wouldn't shock me if we've gotten you transcripts already just to make sure that it's worth your time to keep talking. If we're in Boston from July 6th to 10th for that Boston Open or whatever we're calling it, and you find a guy that you really want or you like, right? What generally would be the process then? I mean, I would assume as a staff, you're going to want to see that person as often as you can between that period of time and when they fill out an application. Um, what would you suggest for a player that you see and you like in early July?
Yeah, stay in touch. Send us your summer baseball schedule.
Yeah,
We'll send you our summer recruiting schedule too. And
yeah,
just stay in touch. Keep us posted. For guys we really like, we'll probably start to have them on the phone, once every so often, as often as we can, just to
yeah,
get to know them. And just to keep tabs on them. If we really like them, we'll invite them to campus at some
yes,
point, either over the summer while they're in town if they're from far away, or if they're more of a local guy, they might come up. We'll arrange that. And then, you proceed through the process. The wheels of recruiting continue
sure,
to turn. And the guys we're kind of really filtering in to really hone in on and potentially support, we have them on campus for an official visit in the fall.
okay,
Um, Sometimes in the spring if we get them early enough, but
yeah,
a lot of times in the fall. A lot of times they've already committed to the process, but just to have our guys meet them in person, because that's a huge part of the process too, is getting,
sure,
a lot of times we'll set up phone calls with our current players if they're
yes,
maybe from the same area or they want the same major or something. And, we're trying to do as much due diligence in as many parts of it as possible. So the baseball part of it is, again, simple, but not easy,
easiest, sure,
right?
yeah,
You try to do the best you can.
yeah,
Academically, that's probably the easiest part because it's
yeah,
like a lot of grades and just like raw numbers.
uh-huh,
But the character piece is hard. It
yeah,
requires a lot of attention to detail and really just talking to guys. It's not a test.
yeah,
That's advice I would give. It shouldn't
oh,
be looked at as like you're being interviewed. It
yep,
just, for student athletes, just present yourself as who you are,
yeah,
and
it's great
you'll be
advice.
attracted by and to the right schools, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it makes
Um,
perfect sense and something that we try to talk about a lot, right? When you pretend to be something that you're not, it ultimately is going to come back to bite you, right? You're going to get to a place where you're not comfortable and other people aren't going to get comfortable with you. So, hey, tell me two more questions. And if anybody who's listening has a question that they have, you can put it in the chat and I'll try to ask Jack before he leaves. What specifically, if you know, in the 2026 class will be a priority for you positionally?
yeah, every other coach in the country, pitching is huge.
Yeah.
Having enough pitchers is really, really important. So
Yes.
that's going to be a priority. Um, Middle infielders is going to be really important.
Yeah.
And, honestly, outfielders are going to be important too. Everything's going to be
Okay.
mostly important, but what we're pretty much honestly every year is athletic, capable, defensive minded middle infielders and strong pitching depth is what we
Yeah.
look for every year. And then beyond that, we kind of fill in with whatever the best athletes available are.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we try to
That
have a
makes sense.
good positional distribution.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but if we don't get a catcher every single year, but
Yeah.
we get really good athletes every single year, we'd rather that.
Yeah. That makes sense. Question I always like to ask coaches is, and we've talked about athleticism and we talked about transcript and academic rigor, but like common characteristics of players who have been successful in your program. Make sense?
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about what those would be. Things that you guys value.
Yeah, maturity is
Mm,
huge. Um, Immature people are typically not successful
yeah.
in anything. So, sometimes that's a process, sometimes it's a growth process, but if they're already really mature and they look you in the eye and they have a firm handshake and they walk
Yeah.
with their chest out and they're confident and secure,
Yeah.
um, that's like a separator. Because
Mm,
not everybody's like that. I get it.
sure.
But that's what we're trying to empower within our program. And so that's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Those are the most successful guys, are the guys that are like the most kind of confident and secure. I have players in my head right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Bet you
you
do.
know, so that'd be the biggest thing is
Yeah.
that. And also guys who are organized with their time
Mm,
is big too.
yep.
Guys who really, really care about baseball at a high level. And that sounds so obvious because college baseball is supposed to be for the guys who care the most. And it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of distractions at MIT, and they're not all bad distractions. Like there's
Sure.
just a lot of people. Your brains, your being as a student is such a high value that a lot of people want it.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
professors want it. Your
Yeah.
people, people hiring, employers want it.
Sure.
Researchers want it. Sometimes, in some rare cases, MLB organizations want it as either as an employee or as a player.
Sure.
So you're just being stretched thin all the time. And so if
Yeah.
baseball is not really, really important to you,
Yeah.
then it's just going to fall by the wayside because you have so much going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. All right. Last question, because I promised you 8:30 and we're right at that now. Um, Tell me something you're really excited about with this 2025 MIT team.
The the amount that we've already improved this year is the
Huh.
biggest thing, and the
Huh.
resilience of this group. Yeah, I could go
Yeah.
for another hour and 3 hours about all the things that this particular group has gone through personally on the field.
Yeah.
A lot of things with this group. They're
Yeah.
so resilient. They're so mature. We've had the least amount of drama. We were talking about this as
Huh.
a staff recently
Yeah.
than as long, in recent years.
Yes.
So they're just dialed in, and we have a lot of things to clean up on the field, and they know that. But they're willing to learn, and they're really, really great players. And so the trajectory of improvement is what I'm most excited about because we're
Yeah.
just getting
Yeah.
every day we're getting so much better.
Yes. Yeah. That's awesome. All right, I did get one last question from somebody, and this would be a short one, but how many players do you guys carry on your roster?
Yeah, we have 30 right now.
Okay.
Typically it's around there.
Yeah.
We've won championships with as low as 28,
Okay.
27.
Yeah.
We've had like a couple of years ago we had 33 or 34. That's probably the most we've ever had.
Uh-huh.
So we're not gonna bring in 45, 50 and cut 10. Like we ain't doing
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
around 30.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Jack, I can't thank you enough. I've coached almost my whole life, and I know in season conversations that are very difficult, right? You don't get a lot of free time, and I think if I'm not mistaken, you have a game Wednesday. So my guess is you got a big practice tomorrow to get ready. Is today a day off? I hope maybe you got a little bit of a
It was a
break.
day off. Yeah, we had a travel or a game and a travel day yesterday. We had
Okay.
a big, wet, gross tarp spill, I should say, today. We had a tarp pull yesterday. We had to spill it today. There's water everywhere. It's
Yeah.
I just wringed out my socks, but so we're busy. We're getting after it. But yeah. No, I
Well,
appreciate
good.
you having me on. I love talking about this
Yeah.
stuff. It's good to get
It's huge.
perspectives and
Yeah.
hopefully
We
I'm
will. You're hugely helpful. This all these guys will appreciate it. And as this spring goes along and we find those 1570 SATs and close to perfect math scores and multivariable calculus guys who can also really play and that they're mature and organized, those are the ones that you and I are gonna talk about. But we're gonna bring a bunch of guys that are creeping up on those things to Boston in July. I think some of them will stick around for that showball event right afterwards. And I know when I was at showball in Boston 2 years ago, we came over to MIT and spent most of a day there playing games. And so I got a chance to look around your campus and eat at a couple of the little establishments right there. And I will look forward to seeing you again. So
it'll be
thank you
great.
so much,
Yeah.
Jack. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Between now and then, have a great season. Okay.
Coach
Thank
Hawk,
you. Thank you.
Coach Hawk, it's Noah Kranz. I just wanted to say thank you for coming on,
Oh,
and it's good to see you again.
Noah, good to see you, man.
Yep, thank you.
see you guys. Good
Bye.
night.